Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are just waiting here. We're going to give a couple minutes for folks to get logged in, so just stay with us. For those that are just joining, we're giving a couple minutes for people to get logged in. All right, I think we're going to get started. Welcome, everyone. I'm Megan Wargo, the CEO with Pacific Crest Trail Association. I've been with PCTA for a bit over 11 years now. But my connection to the PCT starts much farther back. My first hike on the PCT was a backpack over 30 years ago. And it was during that backpacking trip that I really fell in love with our public lands and the outdoors and decided that I wanted to go into a career working in nonprofit conservation, and that eventually led me back to the PCT, where I get to help other people make that connection to the outdoors and our public lands. And I hope that many of you that are getting ready to start out on your own trips this year and connecting with the PCT have that same kind of life-changing experience where you find something that really connects with you and carries forward through the rest of your lives. Um, I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you for those that are logging on live, as well as those who I know will be watching this recording later. Just as an FYR, we are recording this so that folks that could not join us live are able to watch it back later. For those folks that are attending live, I would like to invite you to submit questions via the Q&A tool that's down at the bottom of your screen. We'll try to go get to these questions throughout. Our chat is disabled for this webinar, just given the large size of our audience, but we do want to hear from you and appreciate questions. In today's webinar, we are looking to talk about just more from the PCTA as well as our partners at the U.S. Forest Service. We'll share some background about the Pacific Crest Trail, share some of our current priorities for both PCTA as well as the Forest Service, and cover some tips on how to have a safe and enjoyable low-impact trip on the PCT in 2026. Before we move into the important content of the webinar, I did want to pause and just take a moment to recognize some of the stuff that's important to our work here at PCTA. The Pacific Crest Trail is an experience that people value, that ability to plan a trip on the PCT with confidence, to travel on a well cared for trail, and to feel connected to a broader community exists because of the PCTA members and donors. Their support strengthens our partnerships with land managers, helps maintain and improve the trail experience, and ensures that we can advocate for the long-term protection of the PCT itself. If you're one of those members or donors joining us, thank you very much. You are helping to protect the trail not just for today, but for hikers and future generations. And if you're new to PCTA, we invite you to stay connected to us. There are many ways to support the trail, and every form of stewardship makes a really big difference. With that, I'd like to give a heartfelt welcome to the people taking off on their trips on the PCT in 2026. We wish you the best in your PCT journey. And I'd like to turn the mic over to Lindsay Steinwachs with the U.S. Forest Service.
Hi, everyone. Lindsay Steinwachs. I am the Pacific Crest Trail Administrator with the U.S. Forest Service. I sit in the Eastern Sierras and am looking forward to being here with all of you today and tonight. So a little bit about me. I have been working with the U.S. Forest Service and working on and with the management of the trail for almost a decade now. I was managing the first 100 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail. I'm leaving from the southern terminus before I started in this role, where I now oversee the entirety of the PCT. So just going to explain a little bit about the trail and its importance. So the PCT is not any trail. It is a national scenic trail, which is designated under the National Trails System Act. This is unique legislation, which specifically outlines that the Pacific Crest Trail is special and unique in its own way, and it needs to be managed accordingly. So the Pacific Crest Trail was one of two of the first national scenic trails, along with the Appalachian Trail, that was designated when the act was signed into law in 1968. And the act defines the purpose of each trail to provide for outdoor recreation, conserve natural resources, and showcase the nation's scenic and cultural heritage. It authorizes federal agencies to acquire land, develop specific management plans for each trail, and to maintain that continuous trail corridor to protect for the experience. So what do I do as the trail administrator? I am tasked with basically accomplishing all of those things that are in the act to ensure that the experience that all of our users is according to the intent of law. So my job is to really ensure that continuous and consistent management of the trail across all jurisdictions. So the PCT passes through 25 national forests, 6 national parks, and 7 Bureau of Land Management field offices, as well as California state parks and private county lands. So with that, my job is to really be the big picture steward that ensures that the PCT's experience is high quality, beautiful for all of those at any step along the trail. I also oversee major decisions such as trail reroutes, land acquisitions, long-term planning for the trail that is related to policy as well as budget. And overall, I'm also the partnership manager and liaison. So I work really closely with Pacific Crest Trail Association and then all of those different federal agencies to ensure that we're all working together to provide for that experience collectively, because no one person can provide for this amazing trail that crosses our entire country. Next slide.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Anitra Cass, and I am the Southern California Regional Manager for Pacific Crest Trail Association. I'm based in Southern California, specifically the Coachella Valley. Been with PCTA for 16 years. But what's really exciting for me is that 21 years ago, I was getting ready for my PCT through hike. So that was in 2005. And so we didn't have webinars then, but excited to be able to give you some information that hopefully you will find helpful as you're doing your end of planning and as you're out on the trail. We have had some weather this winter. Lots and lots of rain has happened, and we are starting out to get out and being able to do some assessment of the trail. That's not just in Southern California, that's the length of the trail. But you may find that you are one of the first people or first group of people to be out on a section of trail. And so if you do find potentially unsafe hiking conditions or something that you really think that we should know about, we certainly encourage you to let us know. There's trail conditions reporting spot on our website. Any information you can give us, mile markers, the condition, all of that is great. We certainly appreciate any information that you have. Like I said, we are out there scouting and trying to do trail assessment so that we can triage and prioritize different work based on the urgency of it. So let's talk about some of that work that we know about. So everybody's probably thinking about Mission Creek. As some of you may remember, back in 2019, there was a flood on Valentine's Day weekend that significantly damaged the trail. We've been back out there doing work. However, all the work done from 2019 through the spring of 2023 was then obliterated by Tropical Storm Hillary, which happened in August of 2023. We've now had significant rain in November and December of 2025. It's a remote section of trail. It's in federally designated wilderness. Everything's done by hand, so the work is slow going. The trail is still not to PCT standard. There's been a little bit of work done back there, but the whole section has not been addressed. We have to go through that, unfortunately, slowly. So please expect to find that you're going to have to find the route, that you're going to move more slowly, a lot more time for that section of trail. As you get up onto the Forest Service end of things in the Mission Springs Trail Camp area, some work has been done there as well. But again, trail's not to standard. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done in that area. We've also recently had some December rains that have done some damage to the trail that we know about in the Deep Creek area on the San Bernardino National Forest. So kind of near Deep Creek Hot Springs that you may have heard about. That trail has been partially scouted. There is some damage, but it is passable, certainly by hikers. Would be incredibly challenging for equestrians, so I do not recommend that. But know that is also not to standard. We also know that the town of Wrightwood was significantly impacted by these rains that we had. We anticipate the trail in that area sustained significant damage. There's also been roads damaged, so access to the area is challenging. The town had some significant impacts, and so we haven't seen all the trail yet. There was also the Bobcat fire that happened in that area. So west of the town, if you're hiking from the town, it's trail north. We do have trail work planned there, but of course it's going to be a little bit later in the season, so be prepared for that. And then finally, just want to mention that the entirety of the Angeles National Forest got hit with these rains. And so the section of trail north of Agua Dulce, called the Sierra Pelona Mountains, there was also damage to that section of trail. And some of the dirt roads that serve as access points are damaged. Our volunteers have been out there assessing the damage and already starting to do work on that section of trail. The other important piece of information for those of you that are starting your journey at the southern terminus, there's an important access update for you to understand before you arrive. According to our federal agency partners, access to the land south of the southern terminus is no longer allowed as it falls within a national defense area. So you can still go to the southern terminus, you can sign the logbook, you can take your pictures at the southern terminus, but then you'll want to head north from there. You should not go into the national defense area. You should not go touch the border wall. It is a national defense area, and so those are now military lands instead of public lands. If you have specific questions regarding the national defense area, we recommend contacting Joint Task Force Southern Border and or the Naval Air Force, the Naval Air Facility El Centro, as that is who is administrating that area. We also published a blog post today that has links to some of those connections for you. And so with that, I will turn it over to my counterpart in the north.
All right. Thanks, Mitra. Hello, everyone. My name's Sam Webster. I'm the brand new North Cascades Regional Manager for the Pacific Crest Trail Association. I'm based in the Seattle area, but we do a lot of our work out of North Bend, kind of in the heart of the North Cascades near Snoqualmie Pass. Before I joined here, I had worked for over 10 years on the Pacific Crest Trail as a wilderness ranger in Sequoia and Kings Canyon, and then also up here in Washington on the Mount Baker Snoqualmie Forest. So got to know the trail and big swaths of the trail very intimately for a long time, getting to live and work on it for months at a time. So the PCT holds a big special place in my heart, and I'm really thrilled to be here and to be able to give you all a chance to learn a little bit more about some of the conditions that are coming up that we know of this season. I'll start a little further south in my region, talking about some of the impacts of fires in Northern California. One area that's been a big concern for a while has been the footprint of the Dixie Fire. That fire was in 2021. It burned more than 100 miles of the trail in Northern California, uh, and a stretch roughly between Sierra City and Old Station. And the conditions there have been pretty difficult since then. Lots of down trees, lots of dead down trees, very brushy as brush has grown back post fire in that area. Last year, the conditions in the middle fork of the Feather River, for example, were really bad, and lots of hikers encountered a lot of difficulty in that section. Over 1,000 trees down, very brushy. Last season, through a huge effort by the PCTA and our volunteers, we were able to clear that section in the middle fork of the Feather, which was a huge lift, and we're very proud of the work that we got done there. And it's been a whole other winter since then, so it remains to be seen what exactly the trail will look like back in that section again. But we're aware that that is a particular problem area and one that we intend to focus on coming up this season. In the rest of that larger bit burn area, we're anticipating more of those similar kind of conditions. It's been about 5 years since the Dixie Fire, and we know that typically that 5 year mark, it seems like post fire, is often when a lot of the dead standing trees start to really come down for whatever reason. We've seen that in a lot of areas before. So we're anticipating there being a lot more blowdown in some of these sections there in Northern California and in that burn footprint. We're aware of that, and it's going to be yet again another big focus of our crews in the Northern Sierra region, not just for our staff, but also for our volunteers. We have projects planned in that area to get in and clear what we can. That being said, as Anitra mentioned before, it's often the hikers who are the first people through there who get a sense of what the conditions are. And so one thing that you all can do if you happen to get through there early in the season before crews have had a chance to do it is to report back the conditions that you've seen, and that will help us identify areas that really need our work in a timely manner, and we'll be able to get it done more quickly and help those hikers who are coming up behind you in the bubble. Now I'll move a little bit further north, up into my region in the North Cascades here. There is a section of the trail that's notoriously difficult, has been a difficult to navigate stretch for a long time in the Glacier Peak Wilderness. It's one of the most remote parts of Washington State. And even in the best of times is a pretty difficult and remote place to access. This season, as we know right now, with some shifting conditions, that we had huge floods and storms this past winter that knocked out a lot of really important main roads. They affected some of the towns that the PCT hikers often use for getting resources and resupplies. Those storms had huge impacts up here and have made that access issue an even more difficult part of the Glacier Peak Wilderness. So what we know right now is that there's about a 70-mile stretch through the Glacier Peak Wilderness, that's roughly from Stevens Pass on Highway 2 up to Stehekin, where there's no other access trail coming into the Pacific Crest Trail that hikers can get into. That also means that not only can hikers have a difficult time getting in and out in that stretch, but so can our resources to get to that area and work on it. And that has been the case for a long time. It's a long stretch of deferred maintenance on that stretch of the trail. And similarly, up here in the Northwest, the land of many trees, lots of big blowdowns, not just from this past weather cycle of big floods over the winter, but also before that. We've had many years of these huge atmospheric rivers that have blown lots of trees down in that section. And so it can be really difficult to navigate through that mess of down trees, and something that we want hikers to be really aware of as they get closer and closer to that stretch. All that being said, we are very aware of how difficult this area is to get through. And we have resources this season that are specifically dedicated to be working in the Glacier Peak Wilderness. It's been a long time coming, and we're excited to have a crew that will be working out there and dedicated to just getting as much of the trail clear as they can. And we're working with our Forest Service partners and volunteers to kind of puzzle piece in other elements, other parts of the trail that we'll be able to work on, and hopefully get some really good work done in the Glacier Peak that has been needed for quite a while. Just like with these other areas, a lot of that damage is not totally known. We're making a lot of guesses here, and it's possible that hikers will be the first ones to get through there and see those conditions. And so the more those conditions can come back to us and be reported to us, the more information we have, the better we'll be able to get into and fix areas that are needing it the most. And the very last piece that I want to talk about is kind of a hiker logistic piece for this area, because that long stretch is one in which there's no easy egress or ingress for hikers. It's important to know that the Stehekin area is still planning to be open for the summer season. They have experienced some pretty considerable damage from this most recent storm. Some of the infrastructure in Stehekin was damaged, and they are planning to rebuild it, but that's a long-term process that will not be in place this year. But that being said, the Stehekin Lodge still plans to be running and open. The Postal Service operations there, where hikers often send resupplies and plan to pick them up from, that service should still be available as well. And as of now, they are planning to also run the bus that will allow hikers to access the trail from Stehekin and back and forth. So those right now operations are in the works. Those plans are ready to go. That being said, as we have learned time and time again up here, this place is very dynamic. Those conditions could shift, but it's something that we will continue to communicate with the public about as we learn more about what those conditions look like. And with that, I will pass it off to the next slide.
All right, thanks. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the Pacific Crest Trail and important things you should know that'll help fuel your experience and how you interact with the trail. So going back to the National Trails System Act, it requires us to have a management plan to figure out how to provide that intended experience for the Pacific Crest Trail. And so with that, we have what's called a nature and purposes statement. And so that's what roots us into what are we managing for and what is the experience that we're trying to provide. So ultimately here on the screen, you're going to see a part of that statement, but ultimately a couple key points that will ground you on your hike is that we're providing for a continuous route. So one that extends from Mexico to Canada along the Pacific mountain ranges. Again, in our title, it's kind of what we're about, right? Scenic diversity. So we're trying to connect those world-class landscapes that include desert, alpine, volcanic, and forested landscapes. Wild character. So we're prioritizing lands that are free, wild, and undeveloped. So you should really feel like you're out there, removed from, the everyday hustle and bustle of the world, as well for providing for outstanding recreation experiences on for hiking and horseback, as well as personal experience. You should be able to find a sense of awe, challenge, and respite from modern society on the PCT. As well as we really uplift and promote collaboration and stewardship on the trail. Again, everything that Pacific Crest Trail Association does helps us meet that mission. And then as well as promoting national significance. So not only is the trail, the PCT in its own significant, but as well as all of the vast landscapes that you see, those historic structures that you come across, the natural environment, those cultural references that you're coming through, those stories that you're passing through, those all combined make up the experience that is the Pacific Crest Trail. Next slide. As you hike, you're going to pass through designated wilderness areas. We have over 50 designated wildernesses that the trail traverses. it's really important to understand the importance of wilderness and what it means to recreate in designated wilderness. So wilderness areas were designated under the Wilderness Act of 1964. This is also legislation that explains that we're going to try to specifically protect these areas to ensure that there's this other intended experience, which again is providing for solitude and getting away again from that hustle and bustle of the world. So they should feel really remote, they should feel wild. They're quite out there, which again aligns with the PCT's nature and purposes. So wilderness areas have standards that are trying to preserve what we call untrammeled landscape. And so that means that when you pass into wilderness, you should feel like I haven't seen another human here. And so for when you're thinking about your actions that you bring and what you're doing on trail, consider that you want to leave the space as you came to it. And so take everything with you, understand that we're trying to avoid impacts so that we can maintain that natural beauty and that experience of the trail. Next slide. So the PCT long distance permit. This is the important thing to know. I know probably many of you have secured your date and are really starting to get into the planning of the trail. So what does the long PCT long distance permit allow you to do? So it does provide for a single continuous travel along the official Pacific Crest Trail corridor, allowing for dispersed camping along the way in most sections of the trail. So it's important to understand that just like any other recreation permit, you have a start date, and that's the intended date you should start on, and you have a specific itinerary, and you need to follow the itinerary that has been issued on your permit. As well, there are many special permit zones within your permit that you need to make sure that you look at those specific terms for as you pass into those different zones. So I just encourage folks to have your full permit terms with you. I know it's an extra like 2 sheets of paper, but I think it would serve you well because it provides a wealth of information to ensure that you understand what your permit covers and what you're allowed to do under your permit as you travel the entire span of the country. This permit does afford you a great convenience to be able to hike across many different places that require a permit, but under one single permit. And so we just ask that you spend the time to sit down and really understand where those restrictions are or where those specific needs and itineraries are as you're traveling. So just be sure that you're checking for where there are locations where there are camping restrictions in local areas, as well as time restrictions to pass through specific zones, such as the Sierra Nevada. They have a time restriction of how long it takes you to pass through the Sierra Nevada. So just make sure you're checking in on those things. As well, every single national forest, Bureau of Land Management Field Office, and national park, they have their own local park or forest rules and regulations that you need to be sure that you're aware of. And so just every time you get that phone ping, you're passing into a new area, a new forest, make sure that you're checking on the website to see what fire restrictions might be, what bear canisters restrictions might be, just to ensure that you are prepared and that you're following the rules. This is the next thing also is to be sure that you carry your permit with you. You must have a printed permit. And this is critical for our park rangers and our forest rangers to be able to make sure that you're in the right place at the right time and that you have an official permit and you're allowed to be there. And all of this comes to be important because, again, we're trying to protect the experience, not only just the natural resources and the cultural resources out there, but protect for the experience that you're trying to have. Are you trying to be out there alone? You might not want to be in this huge clump of people. We have a permit to provide for the intended experience, which is to try to give you an opportunity to get away and really experience the trail and embrace all of the amazing resources that it has, as well as trail sustainability, ensuring that not overcrowding and all of those other things creates impact with keeping. So we might have campsite expansion, we might have actually degrading of our resources and degrading water quality from overuse. And so it's important just to be understanding that all of the small actions that you take along the trail, ensuring that you pick up your trash, you're properly storing your food, you're not having fires. Those all help to contribute to that, again, pristine experience, that wild experience that I know you're all looking to have on the PCT. So with that, I am now going to pass it to Justin.
Thank you, Lindsay. Hi, everybody. Justin Koyman here, Director of Trail Operations with the Pacific Crest Trail Association. First and foremost, thanks to everyone for taking the time to be here and learn more about the PCT and our work. I'm going to talk about a few different areas of our work before handing it over to Jack, where we'll hone in a little more on trail-specific information. So as per the slide that you can see, I'm going to start off talking a little bit about our trail maintenance and volunteer programs. So both Anitra and Sam have touched upon this a little bit already, but PCTA accomplishes trail maintenance along the PCT in three main ways. One is with our amazing dedicated volunteers. Another way that we tackle trail maintenance is working with core crew programs, typically young adult crews where members receive, say, an educational stipend. And then we also have our professional staff who both support core crews and volunteers, but then also work together as professional crews. So 2025 started off a little bumpy, to say the least. We as in PCTA, as well as organizations across the country, had some challenges as a result of the federal funding freezes that came down the line in like February or so of last year. And the result of that is that we had to halt the hiring of several seasonal professional trail positions, and we actually ended up canceling a little over 50 plus weeks worth of core crew time. So those were projects that our regional managers, we have 6, there's 4 others in addition to Sam and Anitra, who you've met, but our regional managers had projects lined up, ready to go in collaboration with our agency partners, and all that had to get canceled. But I suppose with every challenge comes plenty of opportunity. And really in 2025, PCTA staff and our volunteers stepped up in a really big way to accomplish a tremendous amount of work. As you can see on the screen, we contributed over 56,000 volunteer hours last year. And with the work of our volunteers and staff, we were able to maintain over 1,100 miles of the PCT, and we reconstructed over 84,000 feet of the trail, which is amazing work. Despite this, and as many folks know, and as we've heard from Sam and Anitra, there are many miles of trail that continue to be in need of trail maintenance. Everything from logging out, cutting and clearing the downed trees across the trail, to brushing, to tread repair, etc. I won't belabor this point too much, but going back to what both Sam and Anitra said earlier, a couple of our focal areas this year will be Mission Creek and Mission Springs area, so Bureau of Land Management and Forest Service lands, where we will be contributing nearly 3 months worth of trail crew work there. Much of that will occur after after many of you have passed through, and we'll also be getting after Glacier Peak Wilderness as well. We have professional staff who will be spending, if weather allows and there's no wildfires, close to 3+ months in Glacier Peak Wilderness, chipping away at the deferred maintenance. So again, it's been said, but you might be out there before trail workers are improving sections. So we appreciate your grace and patience as we're doing our best to get after it. Next slide. So another one of our programs that I just want to highlight for you all is our visitor use management and our Crest Runner program. Many of you will see our Crest Runners on the trail or at the southern terminus later this year. Well, in just a few weeks, actually, for some folks. We'll have 2 Crest Runners stationed at the southern terminus from March 1st until mid to late May. That might be determined a little bit by weather, snow, etc. But around that time, they'll transition up to the southern Sierra Nevada, where they will spend some time at Kennedy Meadows and then doing tours along or hikes along the PCT, connecting with hikers. And the purpose of the Crest Runner program is just that. It's to interact with hikers, provide trail-specific information about local conditions, share leave no trace information, really encourage folks to make good choices out there, even when it's difficult, to protect the natural resources and the trail experience. And they're also collecting data regarding trail use. And that data and information helps inform trail managers regarding future decisions to help us better steward the trail experience and the natural resources along the PCT. So if you're out there, I really hope you have a chance to meet our Crest Runners. Please say hello. Please take a moment to talk with them. And I know they'll be excited to meet all of you as well. Next slide. Trail management. So something I want to share a little bit about, and this really ties to some of the information that Lindsay shared already. And some of this work, I feel like almost happens, it might not be quite as obvious. We as in really primarily our 6 regional managers and myself, work collaboratively with our federal and state agency partners on a regular basis, responding to dozens to hundreds of project proposals a year. Project proposals might include anything from a proposal for a new power line right of way, a vegetation management project, i.e. timber thinning and prescribed fire, travel management, new trail system proposals, on and on it goes. And our staff work on these weekly, sometimes daily. And our goal in this work is to help ensure that the given agency can meet the purpose and needs of a proposed project, but while still protecting the PCT's nature and purposes as per the National Trail System Act, which Lindsay already referred to. So I'll just give one example of this work in a little bit more of a concrete way. So right now we're seeing a significant amount of vegetation management projects being proposed. So proposals to go out and thin the timber, so to speak, thin the forest, sometimes use prescribed fire. PCTA is largely very supportive of this sort of active management, and our staff will collaborate with the land managers to come up with what we refer to as project design features. So essentially design features that protect the scenic integrity of the lands viewed from the trail. So as folks are coming through after a project has occurred, ideally the landscape still appears natural for the most part. And some of those project design features in a vegetation management project would be having a crew come back and low cutting stumps, marking the trees that are going to be cut rather than the trees that are left, so that the trees that are left don't have a bunch of paint stripes on them. Minimizing the use of heavy machinery on the trail tread or crossing the trail tread. Things like that we engage in, like I said, on a weekly, if not daily basis. And the intent is really to protect that trail experience, not only for all of us now, but for future generations as well. Next slide. The last area of our work I'll share about is our advocacy program. So year-round PCTA, along with other trail organizations and other nonprofit partners, are advocating for the continued sufficient funding and attention for trails and recreation. And we advocate at the state, local, and congressional level. And just one example of great success that we've seen with our efforts, and by our, again, I mean PCTA, but other trail organizations that we partner with in this work, is that the recent federal budget that was passed for the first time in years actually contained an increase. Yes, you heard that correctly, an increase in the Forest Service Trails budget. And that's really great news. And on top of that, the instructions that came out of Congress with that budget really reflect back our advocacy work, emphasizing the importance of funding for trails, the importance of the collaborative management of our national trails. Really exciting and encouraging news. This year, well, actually next month, some of us will be back in Washington, D.C., advocating for our public lands and national trails. And specifically, we will be advocating for sufficient funding and reauthorization of some funding sources to help us all, both agency and partner organizations, tackle the deferred maintenance that's along the PCT and other trails. So before I pass it on to Jack, I just want to say a thank you to our volunteers, our supporters, our donors, our members, and all of you all for using and enjoying the trail, contributing to our mission. We truly can't do this work without you, and it really takes all of us to take care of the PCT. So thanks, and appreciate you all, and hope you have a great time on the trail. Okay, Jack?
Hey, everybody. First of all, if I sound a little hoarse, it's because I'm sick, but know that I am so excited to have the hundreds of people on the webinar and all of you watching on YouTube later. I just want to genuinely welcome you to one of my favorite places on Earth, the Pacific Crest Trail. So if you're taking off on a big horseback ride or long distance hike this year, good for you. My name is Jack Haskell. I'm the Trail Information Manager. I've been with PCTA for nearly 15 years and passionate backpacker. My through hike of the PCT was 20 years ago. So my first slide, and I have a bunch of slides, so I'll kind of go fast. And thanks again for being here. Is basically a nudge to take wilderness risk management seriously. You're on your own out there, and don't dismiss the risks. They're real. So you can get hurt and in trouble in a myriad of ways. And if you are an experienced backpacker, you've probably managed risk, whether it's hypothermia or falling or flooding rivers. But if you're not so experienced, just be very cautious because the time to make a safety decision is before it is too late. So one plug that I feel a duty to share with you is to stay in touch with your designated support people at home. There've been too many really sad situations on the Pacific Crest Trail that I get involved with. Some of them are as simple as, say, a parent maybe has passed away and they don't know how to reach their hiker with information about a funeral service. Because hikers, we need to stay in touch. So I call this an ongoing trip and communications plan. And the details of that are pretty basic. It's telling your person at home that you will be in the next town on this day and that you will contact them at that point. And if they don't hear from you, they should call 911, the local sheriff. They should call the authorities. It is essential that you are in touch with your support person on a regular basis. I know that you might think, oh, it's impossible to have a trip plan right now, but it's definitely possible 2 weeks ahead of time. So in my section, I'll also start answering more of our Q&A questions that have come in advance and tonight. So one of them was around cell service. There is cell service in many places, especially in Southern California, but not everywhere. And then once you head north into the remote wilderness of the Sierra Nevada and Northern California and the Pacific Northwest, there are a ton of places with no cell service for a long time. So a common occurrence is that people have get lulled into a sense of security by Southern California cell service. I know that there's not a lot of time before your trips, so my other safety bit here is to learn about first aid, wilderness first aid specifically. There are a lot of things that you can deal with, such as like infection management, making sure that a blister doesn't get infected and cause serious issues. That I always encourage wilderness first aid classes, but at this point, maybe read a book. At the minimum, look at some good YouTube content, things like that. Next slide, please. So this is a flooding creek, and I'm going to talk about snow in the next slide. There's not a lot of it, but the text here is about heat and water scarcity. So carry plenty of water between reliable water sources. One of the questions that came in was around, well, how do I learn about water sources? And it was actually a southbounder wanting to know about southbound sources. So water information is available at pctwater.com. That's a community resource that you all send in updates to, and a volunteer not associated with PCTA updates, and then also the Far Out app. How much water you need really depends upon if you're dry camping, how hot it is, how many miles per day you walk, and your personal situation, right? People require different amounts of water. I personally tend to like having 7 liters of capacity. So I could carry up to 7 liters of water if I need to, because I know that it's hot and I know that I dry camp and all of that. Somebody else asked about when are the water caches refilled. Please note that water caches are an unofficial system. So we discourage over-reliance on water caches, especially the really small ones, because there's thousands of hikers heading out. Putting your safety in the hands of that somebody recently went out and brought 20 gallons to the trail is not a very risk management move. Also, heat and water scarcity, some obvious ones is take siestas, avoid hiking during extreme heat. If you do learn about wilderness first aid, you'll learn that heat illnesses are really dangerous, right? You can go from a little bit sick to dead very quickly, and it's extremely hard to manage. So your best bet is to avoid succumbing to heat exhaustion and then heat stroke. So know those signs and symptoms. I could say that about a million topics. Next slide, please. It's been, I live in Sacramento. That's where PCTA's central office is, and it is raining right now. And we are so grateful that it's raining in California and that it's snowing up in the mountains, because it has been a very dry winter. So this data comes from today, but it's going to snow over the next week. It is obviously, here we are, fairly California focused, a little bit of a northbound focused slide. That's 72% of normal for this date in the Southern Sierra, which is where most thru hikers think about, the high passes south of Yosemite. And then it is incredibly dry all the way to Canada. Very troublesome snowpack at this point. We won't really know until April 1st, but it's looking like a dry year. March is a snowy month. So it's too early to just totally dismiss the risk, especially if you're an early season hiker, and know that, any amount of snow at the wrong time, if you're out there during a flood event because it's gotten really hot and everything's melting really quickly, it can be serious business. And then you only need a small, steep patch of snow to fall and not be able to stop yourself on. So please be safe with that as well. Next slide, please. Oh, wash your hands. In recent years on long distance trails, but also in the Grand Canyon and other recreational destinations, too many people have gotten sick. So including on the PCT, we don't always know exactly what the sickness is, though. But norovirus is a common thing to manage. Uh, Alcohol sanitizer is not effective. So best practices include not sharing food with others and using soap and water. And then if you are or if people around you are vomiting, diarrhea, common signs of norovirus or other GI illnesses, especially with norovirus, you might start feeling better, but you're still contagious for something like 72 hours afterwards. So as a community out there, I encourage if people are sick to go to the doctor and get a diagnosis. And then if there's widespread sickness, you can contact me, but really the local health departments is who I would route you to. And the local health departments and say the California Department of Public Health are interested in illness outbreaks amongst PCT long distance hikers. But it all starts with like, we need facts. And it's the doctors doing a diagnosis that will bring about facts. Like, is it norovirus or is it something else? We are dirty hikers. And one of the ways to avoid an unnecessary rescue in a really remote area or making everyone sick is to wash your hands. Please wash your hands. Next slide, please. Okay, wildfires. So we talked about it being a dry year. Let's all hope that that we only have good fire on the landscape this year. Unfortunately, we are in a wildfire crisis. Wildfires have grown larger and there's more of them, and they are truly scary. So take them seriously. As the slide says, get away as quickly as you can. React, right? Don't assume that if there is a fire nearby, that it's managed. Don't assume that somebody will come out and tell you what to do. Oftentimes, as the season goes on, resources are incredibly stretched, right? You've probably seen in the news that California and Oregon and Washington as well, there's too many fires that are too big and they're very difficult to stop. It's truly a crisis. I will also, as I have a hoarse voice, put a plug into safe decision making around smoke. Smoke is just seriously unhealthy. I discourage you from hiking in smoke. You're breathing deep. PCTA has protocols for our staff and volunteers around this. We don't want people getting cancer. We don't want people being sick. So, but hikers, public lands generally are not going to close because of smoke. We did get some questions about how do I learn about closures. Something that PCTA puts a lot of resources into is stewarding closure information. It's our partners in the government, right? We heard from Lindsay earlier, the Forest Service, BLM National Park Service, state parks. They're the ones with the legal authority to close lands, right? And if they do that, we are talking to them and interpreting that information, this legal closure order that's kind of obscure, posting it on our website. And the website also has the same information in a smartphone app. It's called PCT Closures. I encourage you to download it. It provides offline access to this information. We don't store it in far out. If you're a far out user, we stored it in this public system. Unfortunately, the app is only available to people with the US App Store. It hasn't been released in other countries for legal compliance concerns. But Closure app and the closures.pcta.org check often. Like if it's fire season, if it's midsummer, check it every time you have cell service. Definitely every time you're in town. We put a lot of effort into it. But also please use other sources of information, like especially the government itself will have good information. Next slide. So with this, don't start a wildfire. Holy moly, please don't. It is far too easy to start a wildfire. I know that most years, people through hikers on the PCT find smoldering campfires in places where a fire wasn't even allowed, and then somebody walks away from it. That is shameful. Nearly 90% of wildfires in the US are started by people. So no fires in Southern California, basically, right? The onus is very much on you for you to be dead certain that you've checked in that specific location. You're not on private land. You're on public land where fires are currently allowed before you have fires. So for most of the PCT, they'll be banned this summer because of the low snowpack. They'll just be, you can assume that there'll be no fires allowed until maybe like if you're out in the fall, perhaps those fire bans will have been lifted and maybe it's appropriate to have a fire type of thing. Next slide, please. Okay, so I talked about safety, leave no trace. Leave no trace is a set of principles. It's guiding advice for all of us who travel outdoors to use as a framework when making decisions on what to do. These are not rules. It's how you can leave no trace, how you can protect these places. So if you don't have the 7 principles memorized yet, I really encourage you to get on lnt.org and take their classes, read about it. As part of your permit system, you also are provided leave no trace information. Just foundational. If you're a backpacker, in many of these places, it's us backpackers who have the most negative impact on the place, right? There's no other impacts really, except maybe climate change. But it's us backpackers who are impacting these places, and you can make good choices. They're not always obvious, and leave no trace will help you understand ways to travel lightly on the land. Next slide. So there's a lot of you. People have been through hiking the PCT for a little more than 50 years now. And I have this job with the hope that 500 years from now, people are having the same experience that we're having today, that they're sleeping in the dirt, that it's pristine, all of that. So your actions really do matter. And one of my favorite things is talking with long distance hikers, and the class of 2025 was so amazing. So many people who deeply cared about experiencing and protecting nature. So class of 2026, I invite you into that movement, right? And it's 50 years of people who have protected these places and traveled through, and hopefully you don't notice their impact. So next slide. One of the ways that you'll have more impact is when you camp. When you're hiking the trail, it's a durable surface. We maintain it, we build it so that your footprints are not leaving a lot of impact. But campsite choice, the act of camping is when it's one of the greater opportunities for you to really damage these places. So camp in existing sites, there are thousands of them. Don't create new fire rings, don't create new structures. Please don't break bushes. Please don't cut down trees. Unfortunately, we have to say these things. Again, there's thousands of campsites. Use one that already exists. The damage has largely been done. Don't expand it. Hike on and find something that's more appropriate. Also, camp away from the trail and from water. Camping too close to water could lead to erosion and water quality issues and pollution. Camping on the trail or too close to the trail is first not allowed, and then also it can be pretty obnoxious for others, right? If they're hiking past, like, your campsite is right there. What are you doing? So look for good campsites. Next slide, please. I'm gonna look at Q&A real quick. So we got a couple of questions from people abroad. First of all, welcome for everyone who's gonna travel to the United States to hike the PCT. I think it's about 30% of long distance hikers. Usually it's about 50 different countries. This diversity is part of what makes the trail great. The PCT is the people, and people from all over the world. So that leads into, there are some things that you might not know if you live somewhere else in the world. And one of them is American wildlands and bears and raccoons and protecting your food from animals. And really, it's protecting animals from your food. You're a hungry hiker, you probably want your food, but if the animals eat it, they might die, right? So PCTA encourages food storage, hard-sided food storage containers for the whole trail. More and more places require them. And it's the Sierra Nevada, right, from Kenny Meadows. And I'm speaking in general terms. We've got a page on our website with all the actual details. But the Sierra Nevada up till Truckee, right? There's a new area around Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe has just a huge number of bears that are very good at getting people's food. It's a big problem if you know of Lake Tahoe. And then again in Lassen National Park, that national park with bear issues and national park where we try to protect wildlife, right? And then up in Washington, the situation is more complicated. So Northern Washington has some new food storage requirements where you have to hang your food. But on the PCT, the trees are small and you can't properly hang your food. So the way to protect your food is to put it in a canister in Northern Washington. Somebody from Australia asked if they need to hang that plastic container in a tree. No, they stay on the ground, they lock. You don't hang those. So good question. Okay, next slide. Poop. Don't be disgusting when going poop. Right? There's a lot of you. So in Southern California at the beginning of your trip, if you're a northbounder, it is sometimes tempting to go in the sandy washes, right? So like where water might flow, it's really sandy and it's sometimes flat and easy to dig. Oh gosh, please don't do that. They do run with water. There might not be water when you're there, but please don't wash and don't go poop in a wash. Bury it properly, 6 to 8 inches deep. Carry out your toilet paper. It's not a big deal. I've been doing it for decades. Just put it in a Ziploc. You can kind of wrap it in some more toilet paper. Please don't roll a rock. So I don't do a lot of trail maintenance, but the PCTA community does a ton of trail maintenance, and the trail workers are like, they use rocks to build the Pacific Crest Trail. And if you've pooped under the rock, it's really an awful volunteer experience. So don't do that. Don't use the rock and roll method. Just dig, carry a shovel. And then we got a little thought exercise. How many poops are left right near the PCT and campsites? I, for your sake, I didn't do that math, but it's a lot if you think about all the million people who hike on the PCT every year. Next slide, please. We're getting towards the end. Maximize your last days before your trip. So unfortunately, a good number of people will injure out pretty early during their long distance hike. During my through hike, when I was out there, my feet hurt a lot. And it was so surprising that in all my trip planning, I was worried about lightning, I was worried about snakes and water and all those things that we can manage. But nobody ever told me about the universal experience of my feet hurting. And that could have been managed through adequate preparation ahead of time. So I really encourage you to dial in your gear, but also dial in your body before you head out. I would worry less about, what your resupply plan is. You can figure that out for the next 2 weeks. But right now, I would maximize your time with preparing your body. And then, we also have extensive information on our website, pcta.org. Okay, next slide. And I'm looking at the Q&A. I think I answered Washington snowpack, very, very light. People are asking earth Ursacks in northern Washington. I think that those are appropriate and allowed up there. They're not appropriate, say, in Yosemite, though. So Justin, you can come off camera. We're wrapping up right now with just welcome to the Pacific Crest Trail. It is such an incredible place. I call it a highlight of a life well lived. So whether you are coming just for this summer, or whether this is your 20th summer on the PCT, or the first summer of 20 years to come, I'm jealous. I hope I can see you out there a little bit. I'm out there. I'll try to say hi, and reach out anytime. We're here for you, and be safe and enjoy. Justin.
Thanks, Jack. And as we're wrapping up, I know we said thank you earlier, but really want to close by just thanking everyone again for their time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being interested in learning more about the PCT, the PCTA, our collective work in managing and maintaining the trail. Really want to say thank you again to our members and donors and everyone for using the trail. The experience people have on the PCT, having a, by and large, well-maintained tread, having clear information that the association provides, strong coordination with land managers, and opportunities to give back through volunteering or supporting our work really is a result of everyone's collective support. So want to say thank you to everyone. Thanks for being part of the community that stewards and cares for the PCT. Hope you all have a wonderful time on the trail this year. And echoing Jack, hope I bump into some of y'all on the trail. Appreciate it.
Thanks, you all. Appreciate it, and be in touch. Bye.